All right, welcome to this edition of Morgan You Asked For podcast. We kind of switched tonight. I believe we are live on my YouTube page. So if you want to get to my YouTube page, you can do that and turn into us live. First time, I don't know how this is all going to work. I don't know how it's going to look on YouTube, but we're using new technology, StreamYard, and they have some different tools and stuff for us to try. And we're going to do that tonight. So I'm sure no one on yet because not very many people know we're doing this, and a little bit of this is just a trial run, but hopefully in the future we can get some people to listen and pay attention live and maybe even ask us questions live. I don't know how that all works for sure, but we're going to all learn together. Now, another thing is I'm the one on location tonight. I don't know if Trev can kind of see this. I'm not at my home place. I'm actually at my parents' house. So today was the first day of no school. And what I do in the summer is I go work for my father in our construction company that we have. And we're tearing apart a couple science rooms at I-35 schools in Truro, which is right next to Hinterland. So we drive right by Hinterland every day now. And so I did that today, moved cabinets and getting ready to tear out more cabinets and stuff tomorrow. So I'm in his office. He, works from home and has a home office and everything. So I'm on location and Trevor's at home tonight. Welcome, Trev.
It's a little weird for you to be somewhere else. It's usually the
Yeah.
other way around. But yeah, you can tell I'm at home. You've seen this background plenty of times. So nothing too exciting on my end. But yeah, first day of vacation for you. So you're
Yeah.
Sounds like you're working. You're supposed to be taking it easy, but you're working.
I'll have enough days off, but I like helping my dad and I like doing it. I left my house at 5:30 this morning. I was in Truro at 7 a.m. So hour and a half drive. So that's another reason I'm staying at my parents'. It's only about 25 minutes or so back to work tomorrow, so I don't have to drive an hour and a half every day. So I'll do it enough when things I have to get back for and everything, but nothing I have to get back for tonight. I will go back home tomorrow night. Baseball practice and soccer practice for Tyler and see the kids and everything. So, but yeah, so doing that. Kind of an interesting week in sports. And I know kind of on our first thing isn't really sports related, but it's Iowa State kind of facility talk, the George Strait Concert. I went to it on Saturday night. Now, I'll be honest, I have just a little bit different take to this than some others. A lot of people complained about the lines. And I will be the first to tell you there was a lot of lines. I saw them. I did not wait in them. You got to kind of know the system. And obviously, I've had season tickets there for years and years and years. I've been to most games since 1998 there. So the expansion and everything, I know that place like the back of my hand. And the other thing is we took our camper up Friday night and then we left Sunday morning. So I did not have to battle traffic, did not have to battle parking. So those situations, because of relationships that I have, and I want to thank those people able to get me a spot and then, paying a little money. It actually wasn't that bad, but paying a little money and then having access to a camper, which I understand not everybody does. I was able to, that helped my experience as well. I didn't have to fight traffic after, I didn't have to fight traffic before. And then, just in doing that, I want to say, thank you to the Stecks. They had us over for a beer or so Saturday morning. And then also saw Sitzma's were right next to us as well in the campground, and they were around and saw them too. So several Oskaloosa people were there. And, from my Facebook and Twitter and Snapchat, there were a lot of people there that I knew that I didn't know were going to be there. So there was a lot of people in my circle that were at that concert, which does not surprise me. Little Big Town, Chris Stapleton, George Strait. Okay. Concert started at 5:45 with Little Big Town. We probably left our camper. We were in the RV Village. We walked across the bridge we probably left at 5 o'clock, maybe a little after, with another couple that were there. Bill and Amy Halloran were there. We walked across with them, and it was a little wait, but overall nothing too bad. And then our tickets were on the opposite side, so we were in section D, so we were on the west side. Now that's where probably the biggest frustration is trying to get all the way across. Probably could have alleviated that a little bit with trying to go to another gate. But I have found that gate by the bridge, there is some time, but they do get through it faster than some of the other gates. And when walking on the south gate, there was a long line, and it looked like it was not going well. So that, again, is just knowing the gates that work the best. So that helped us. Now, fight getting there because of all the beer lines and food lines. Now, I will be honest, I ate a sandwich a little after noon at the camper, and I did not eat at the game in the stadium. I knew it would suck. I knew the lines would be bad. That was purposeful on my part. I did not want to fight a line for a hot dog or a chicken strips or a corn dog, because I knew that was going to be a line. So I guess, again, that's just me having access to the camper and a sandwich and, drinks and everything. So that was an advantage I had over some others as well. So I did not stand in a food line. Beer, the lines were long, but there were guys walking around, the ones that put them on their head and walk up and down the stairs. Well, you just go I did this 3 times. You just go find a guy and you buy a beer from him when they're down in the concourse.
Yeah, so they come back.
Yep. So I did that. And so I maybe had to wait for 1 or 2 other guys or girls to buy a beer in front of me. That's how I bought I did not stand in a line. Now, I have a lot of gray hair. There were people that I guess you were supposed to get a wristband. I did not have a wristband, and they sold me beer. I don't know if that was kosher, but that was my experience at George Strait Concert. The people were really good. Little Big Town. Obviously we know several of their songs, but they were definitely an opening act. No production. Just them and their band playing. Then Chris Stapleton, and he is, one of those that just stands there and sings. But his production wasn't great either, because he was the second act. And then as soon as George Strait came on at 9:15, the lights went on. I mean, it was production after production, and it was really, really good. And he stands there and sings. That is what you get with George Strait. But he sang for 2 hours, maybe even a little bit more than 2 hours, played a lot of hits, played some new stuff, which that's an argument we can have, and maybe a discussion with you, Trevor. But it doesn't matter what he does. He's going to have songs that we all know and love that he can't play. He has 60 number 1 songs. He cannot play 60 songs in a night. Looking at his set list, I think he played 32 songs. So he did his darndest to get a lot of them, and probably played 5 new songs. So he played 28 songs that you knew the words to, that you sang to. And this is just me, and you wonder, and Zach Bryan's the same way. He goes and plays Something in the Orange or Heading South, and then you go play a new song, and everybody's singing with you. You don't really even have to sing. That's got to be just a huge adrenaline rush. It's why you do that. And then you go play a new song that you love. You know it. You know it's going to be great, but no one knows it because it isn't released, or just not everybody knows it yet. And no one's singing to you. I wonder how that makes them feel a little bit inside. It's got to be weird.
Feel a little bit weird, but like you said, 28, give or take, were songs that we all know. I mean, George Strait, like you said, 60 number 1s or whatever it is. He can't sing all of them in one night. I mean, that would be a 5-hour concert. So 4 or 5 new ones, as you mentioned, that sounds about right. And like you said, everyone kind of gets picky on that type of stuff. Some people get upset with the new songs. I like a mix. I'd like to hear at least half I know at minimum and half I don't, or half new. So it sounds like you got a pretty good mix there of songs, and
Yeah,
a
I
hell of
mean,
a
it
lineup
was really
too at
good.
Jack Trice Stadium. Just in general, to get to see Chris Stapleton beforehand. I mean, I'm interested what the production would have been like if it was flip flopped and Stapleton was last. I would think it'd be a little bit better, as
Yes, yeah.
popular as
I
he
mean,
is,
I
but who
truly
knows?
think it was because he was second. They didn't do the production.
No, that's probably right. I mean, anytime you do these concerts in these stadiums that aren't used to it, there's a lot of concerts out here at the Broncos Stadium and more this year. They're used to doing that. This at Jack Trice it's a special deal. So you talked about the long lines. That's to be expected. If you go into a concert there at Jack Trice like this and you weren't expecting long lines or waits, then you're pretty naive, in my opinion, or you just haven't been to a lot of concerts.
And that's what I was going to get to. I've been to a lot of concerts. Zach Bryan, the 3 times in a row there, all sold out. Now, another thing is, when you go to those places, it's 15 to 20,000 in those, just depending on the arenas. This was probably 55,000 people. So it's over double just the amount of people. And then also, I was not on the floor. I had some friends that were down on the floor, and they had no bathrooms on the floor. So they had to go back up into the stands to go to the regular bathrooms in the concourse. And I don't know if that's an Iowa State deal, a fire marshal thing. There's some things that might be out of Iowa State's control in that. But that was not good. And then the beer lines down on the field did not look good. I'll be honest. And I don't know if they had people walking around selling beer down there. I did not see them, but I was not down there. And then obviously, listen to people. And then it did get dark, so you couldn't see anyway. But so I do think being up a little bit did help. Now we did kind of move. We didn't have seats with our friends, but we did find kind of an open area. And he kind of looked, and I hadn't heard of this. This is a pretty good strategy. He went and looked up on like SeatGeek or one of the apps that found an open section or where there are empty seats that are better than his that weren't sold. Like they were still for sale. And there was an area about 20, 30 seats that I'm guessing somebody bought and didn't use or tried to sell them and didn't. So we went and sat there and it was really fun. Met some new people. He calls himself the social butterfly. So those of you that know what I'm talking about, that listen to this will know that. And so he talks to everybody and starts meeting them.
That's a pretty good little trick there. I don't know if you should be giving that away.
I had not thought of that either. That's pretty good. So might have to try that at the Zach Bryan concert in Denver.
That's right. That's right. That's coming up in a few weeks. That's a good one. I never thought of that, but that's, you gave, depending on how many people are listening to this, you gave away a good one right there.
Right. So for me, I did not have a bad experience at all. Now, here's the one gripe I haven't, and I'm going to tweet a link to this to Brent Bloom. I listened to his podcast, Cyclone Fanatic and everything, and he said there was going to be Ames Lager beer there, which is the collective beer. And that would have been super smart because then every one of those beers, a little bit of money goes to the players at Iowa State. There was not any. I saw 0 Ames Lager beers. So I don't know if he was told one thing and they couldn't do it or something happened in translation there. But I would like to know the answer to that from Brent Bloom, and we will. Why there was not Ames Lager beer there. They just had the regular. They had some. I did see some Forever True beer, which is the Iowa State beer, which that goes to Iowa State, which I understand why they would want to sell that. Maybe that was the deal, but I did not see very much of it. But it was Busch Light, Miller Light, Coors Light, and then seltzers is what I saw. So it was just your regular domestic beers. And, I think they people need to understand what type of fan was going to that concert. It was a beer drinking fan crowd. It wasn't a bunch of young people. There were some, but that was not a young crowd. And it's a country music crowd. So that is a beer drinking crowd. So I don't know. There was a lot of pallets of beer getting moved during long lines, and that was a little bit unfortunate. They needed to plan a little bit more because of the type of crowd that concert is compared to others. Like a Zach Bryan crowd probably does not drink as much beer as a George Strait crowd because it's a lot younger, in my opinion. I could be wrong in that, but I would guess if you put the same amount of people in a George Strait concert and a Zach Bryan concert, there'd be more beer sold at George Strait.
Yeah, you would. Are you still there? You're cutting out a little bit.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, I got you. Yeah, no, George Strait, that old school, a little bit older crowd. You would think there'd be more beer drinkers. As you said, a Zach Bryan concert would probably be a little bit more mixed drinks. But as far as what they're allowed to serve in there, sometimes I wonder if that has to do with the artists that are coming through. If they make a deal beforehand, hey, you have to serve Bud products or Coors or whatever the brand might be.
He was sponsored by a tequila company. So, and I did not see mixed drinks there. So it wasn't like it was sponsored by Bud Light, which if that is the case, I completely understand it. That is part of the deal when you're signing up to it. But he was sponsored by Codomingo it was some tequila brand.
Yeah, maybe Jack Trice had a deal in place too with some of the beer out there that said, hey, we'll order this many cases or this many pallets, and they got a deal on it, right? And maybe the other company didn't give them that. So I don't know. That's something that event planners would have to answer for us on that one.
Yeah, absolutely. But as I said, and the other thing is George Strait is 72 years old, and he still sounds great and puts on one heck of a show. I was at that show in '99, the last concert at Jack Trice Stadium, which was George Strait, and it was the Dixie Chicks, and it was Faith Hill, and it was Tim McGraw, and I think it was Kenny Chesney. It was one of those all-day festivals, and it was all the people now that are established big stars, but they were just starting out, and George Strait was taking them and getting them famous during which is what they all do. All those artists now bring on your openers and everything, and that's just kind of the circle of music.
Yeah, that would have been a hell of a lineup back then to see too. Dixie Chicks, Faith, Tim. I mean, that's a good one. But yeah, that's a pretty cool event there that they had at Jack Trice. I would hope they try to do something like this again next year or soon. I hope they don't wait a long time because obviously they learned some things that were good and bad from doing this. Hopefully they can improve and then try to get some sort of a lineup for next summer or whenever.
Yeah, it almost needs to be this weekend every year. It was Memorial Weekend. It is, they use that stadium for spring practice and everything. And then obviously you don't want it in August right before the season in case it would be raining or something that would mess up the field a little bit. I mean, it was covered, but you don't want it so close where you're going to ruin the field right next to it. So this is kind of your sweet spot, May, first part of June. And yes, and the other thing is it's just a moneymaker. And athletic departments, we've talked about this, they need to come up with $20 million. And this, if that thing makes $1 million, that's $1 million you didn't have last week. That's what Sci-Town is about that they're working on. If that can make $5 million a year to start, there's $5 million, so you do one concert, that's $1 million. You do Sci-Town is finished in a year or so. There's $6 million. So I only got to come up with $14 million. It just kind of every little bit helps. And thinking out of the box and trying to do different things. You don't hear about concerts at Hilton like it used to either. I saw Billy Joel, Elton John at Hilton Coliseum when I was in college. And Wells Fargo has a lot to do with that. Des Moines is a bigger city. I think Wells Fargo is bigger than Hilton Coliseum. But if you could get one concert up there and one concert at Jack Trice And then once Sci-Town hits, this would have been a huge day and weekend when Sci-Town with the hotel there and bars and restaurants. And then, they're going to have an amphitheater where you could have some local acts come and play and starting at noon, that you could, just like your Friday after 5, you buy 10 tickets and you get a wristband and you go stand and listen to somebody play music, nothing wrong with that either. That's another way to make a little bit of money.
Local bands from the state, local bands from the university there at Iowa State to open up early in the day, like you mentioned. So yeah, hopefully this becomes a common thing there, because it looked really cool from all the videos I saw, Snapchats. I was pretty jealous. I would like to have been there. So hopefully this becomes a regular thing, not once every 20 years or whatever.
Right. Yep. Absolutely. All right. Move on to more sports related here. Caitlyn Clark had her first 30-point game last night. I do think she is playing better. She is getting more comfortable. She is starting to hit a few more shots that we're used to seeing her hit. She's still missing open shots that we're not used to seeing her miss. She didn't miss those at Iowa, but she is getting better. And I do think the team is getting better as well. They're not great. They're not good even, I would say. But I do think they're playing a little bit better together. And if we can ever get her and Aaliyah Boston on the same page at the same time, they got a chance. The question is that coach the one? That's everybody's question now. Is that coach the one? I don't know, and I don't know the WNBA enough to know if they fire coaches after 8 games. I don't know. I don't know who they would bring in. All the rumor is Bluder. Bluder's not going there right now. That would absolutely shock me if they fired their coach and hired Bluder, and she finishes the season. That would we would have to have like an emergency podcast, and I would have to apologize to everybody for not even thinking that was a remote possibility, because I don't think it is.
The person to blame right now is a coach. Again, maybe she is the wrong coach. I don't know. It's too early, though, in my opinion, to tell. They're only 8 games in the season. So, I have to be fair. I told you last time we talked, or 2 times ago, I really wasn't worried about their record the first 10 to 15 games, give or take. It was more how they played the second half of the season. Do they improve? As you mentioned, it does look like they're improving. For Caitlyn, and I'll go through this real quick, where she ranks in the WNBA as far as stats go, and stats aren't the whole story, but they do tell part of it. She's ranked 13th in points, 4th in assists, 24th in rebounds, 27 in steals, 13 in blocks, and she is number 1 in 3-pointers made so far this season. So she's already a top 20 player. And I think by season's end or even midseason, she's going to have a real good chance to be top 10 if she's not already. Again, I don't know the history of the WNBA, but her stats look really well so far. They're getting better. And, you probably saw that highlight of the Airy girl shooting the free throw. I don't know if you saw that, where she forgot she had another one to shoot, and she runs up to Caitlyn Clark to guard her. I mean, Caitlyn Clark is a marked man out there right now. Yes, everybody's trying to welcome to the WNBA. I get it. And this kind of transitions into a few things that I've noticed about the WNBA. Again, I just started watching this season. I'm learning in real time, like a lot of people are. First and foremost, the pace of play is slow. There's too many whistles. It's not good visually. People are going to turn away from that. And out of these 3 complaints, I think there's 2 that they can fix. Every time there's a whistle, it seems like the refs and the players aren't on the same page. Nobody knows where to line up. Is it a jump ball? Are we inbounding here? What's going on? Last night, LA was shooting a free throw, I think, with under 5 minutes, and the ref had to remind the Indiana Fever girls, like, hey, you need to be down here at the free throw line. You need to be lined up. And they just seemed confused about it. You don't see that in college basketball, I don't think, in the women's game,
Right.
from what I remember. So it's sort of a little bit of a Mickey Mouse operation, I'd call it. And they had time to prepare for this. They need to be more buttoned up. So the pace of play, I don't know, too many whistles. And I'm not just talking on Caitlyn Clark. I'm talking in general. It's just ruining the pace of play on TV for me. This one, I don't think they can fix right now because they need money. But the courts look goofy. The basketball courts look dumb. It looks like arena football, I told someone last night. And I understand the Indiana Fever have Cheez-It as one of their brands. They're probably obviously getting paid money for that. So that's not going to change. Call me old school. I like an old school looking basketball court. Just give me a regular looking court with the players on it. The third, I think this one can be changed. I would assume the basketball looks dumb. It's a goofy looking basketball. Just give the players a regular looking basketball. Enough of this trying to be different. I saw some people say, well, they've always used a ball like that.
No,
Whoopity-doo. Whoopity-doo.
Yeah,
That means
kind of going back to
nothing
like
me.
the ABA and everything where they had the different basketball because trying to differentiate themselves from the NBA.
Yeah, cry me a river. NFL makes changes all the time on equipment. Football helmets, face masks, all sports leagues do, successful ones. So the WNBA, it's almost like they're sitting on their hands. They're just reaping in the benefits like, oh, we're gonna get a bunch of new ratings, money's coming in, which it is. Doesn't mean it's gonna last though. I think the WNBA needs to be aggressive, look to get the pace of play up, and just get a regular looking basketball. It looks goofy. I don't care if they've used it forever. Sports have changed for a long time. Baseball introduced the pitch clock. What was it, last year or this year, to speed up games? Like I said, the NFL changes helmets, face masks, all this stuff. The successful sports change. They don't just sit on their hands. And it feels like the WNBA right now is just reaping in the benefits and not trying to be aggressive, in my opinion.
Yeah, just the pace of play is the biggest thing. The Phoenix Mercury scored 47 points last night in an entire professional basketball game. That's not good. That's Virginia men's basketball. That was Iowa State basketball when they didn't have any offense. They still won games, but that's bad basketball. And that's kind of the argument we get in this argument with the Hawkeye basketball. Do you want Todd Licklider where you score 47 points? Or do you want Fran McCaffrey where you score 90? Your record's the same, a little better with Fran, but at least it's fun to watch. And that's the biggest thing. Caitlyn Clark is used to, I don't know how many times they scored 100 this year, but they scored a bunch. And if you lower it to 85, I bet they averaged over 85 points a game. They were run and run and run. And it's not just the Fever. They don't want to run. That's just the style of play in the WNBA. And you're right. The difference in the WNBA and college basketball is they have defenders that get to Caitlyn as soon as she gets the ball or don't even let her get the ball. And those girls can stay with her the entire possession and make her work her tail off so much more than she had to in college. That's
True.
the difference.
You did have to work harder. And the one thing I have noticed, really my only complaint, not with the refs calling her for fouls. A lot of people complain about that. I try not to do that. That just seems, I don't know, a little weak to me, even if it is true. The one thing with her teammates I've noticed, when the players go down low, whether they're driving or they're backing up to the hoop, 9 out of 10 times they do not look to dish the ball out to Clark or anybody for that matter. At Iowa, we talked about this last episode, I think. They would always look to dish the ball out if there was nothing there. These women in the WNBA, if they decide they're driving or if they're going down low, there's no thought to even dish the ball out. And Clark is open sometimes, and those are the times you really have to get her the ball. And I'm not a basketball expert, and I can see it. These coaches have to see this. Yes, they have to see this and talk about it, and it doesn't seem to be improving so far. I don't know. That's probably my biggest frustration is she is open, and there's no dish outs ever, hardly at all.
Yeah, one of the best three-point shots in the game is after an offensive rebound. Offensive rebound, kick it out, and all your momentum is going forward. You step right into the shot and you shoot it, and it's a really, really high percentage shot.
Yeah, and I'm trying to watch. I've spoke to plenty of people, males in particular, that are about done watching it because it's too slow.
I've watched her games, and
like
I'm going to continue to watch her games, but I kind of thought I might watch some other games just because I have not watched 1 minute of other games. So I am one of those, I'm in it for Caitlyn Clark, and that's really about it.
I've watched a little bit of some other teams, and I'm trying, but I can't sit here and say it's not a tough watch. It's a tough watch. And if the WNBA just sits on their hands and doesn't try to make improvements, then all this is going to be lost eventually. I mean, not completely. They're still improving on ratings and stuff, but there's no guarantee that 2, 4, 5, 10 years from now they still have chartered or private flights or any of the stuff that's coming right now. So we'll see, but they need to be aggressive and progressive. Adapt or die.
Yeah,
they need to be looking for ways to improve the watch, because a lot of people don't like to hear this, and old school people especially. Professional sports are a business number one, and a sport second.
Yes. The number one job of the Indiana Fever for the person that owns them is for the Indiana Fever to make money.
Yep.
They do not, I mean, do they care they win? Absolutely. But that is not number one. The number one job of the New York Yankees is to make money. The Chicago Cubs, that their job is to make money. One of the best investments is buying a sports team, and it's because when you sell it, it's worth more money. And in order to do that, you have to, sell more tickets, and, you just have to be exciting. And the WNBA has a chance to do that right now for all their owners and everything, to make a lot more money than they ever have, but they have to capitalize. And you're 100% correct in a couple of your critiques, Trevor.
Hey, listen, a lot of professional teams, not all, but the really good ones, if we take the NFL, for example, yes, it's a business, but they also really care about winning. There's some out there, some owners that, for the Bengals, for example, sure, they like winning, but they really care about making money.
Right.
It's not very common that you find an owner that puts as much into making money as they do winning. That's when you really have a successful franchise in any sport professionally. So we'll see. I don't know. I have my doubts still. I'm trying to give it a chance. And then last part on the WNBA, Angel Reese tweeted out the other day after they won a game. I don't know if you saw it or not. She later deleted it. She said this isn't all about one player. And of course, being from Iowa, we're all supposed to hate Angel Reese. But I'm here to tell people she's not going anywhere. She's feeding into being the heel, as they call it in wrestling or WWF, being the bad guy. She's feeding into it, and I think it's very important. She is the second most important player for the growth of the game, whether you like her or not. She's not my cup of tea, but she's not going anywhere. She's the second best rookie. She's going to be around for 10 plus years, and she's not going to be done tweeting or posting on social media. So if you don't like it, buckle up, because there's more to come with her.
Absolutely. All right. Anything else on the WNBA, Trev?
Nope. We'll see how the rest of the year goes. I think they're 8 or 9 games in now. Give it about 5 or 6 more. They need to start putting up W's. Then we can really start getting into do they have the right coach or not? I think it's too early to tell. But again, what do I know? I'm just learning in real time, just like you.
All right. Knight, you've got some NFL futures out. The official schedule did come out since the last time we've talked together. The Chiefs are the moneymaker of the NFL. That was very easy to see, and the schedule proves that. They play every day of the week except for Tuesday. And I would call, and I listened to the Kelsey podcast the other day, and Travis was 100% right. I think officially they play 6 or 7 primetime games, but I think you could actually go with about 10, because they play on Christmas Day. They play the Friday after Thanksgiving, Black Friday. And it might be at 3:00 in the afternoon. So is it truly prime time? No, but it's the only game in town. and everybody's going to watch it. And over the holidays, they are the number one team in the NFL right now for everything.
They're popular for a lot of reasons. They have the best player on the planet. They've got Andy Reid, Kelsey, Taylor Swift, back-to-back champs, all that stuff. So it's going to be, and they have an early bye week too. It's really going to be tough for them.
He did not like that. That was his one thing he didn't like.
I don't blame him, and it's going to be tough to get back to a Super Bowl if they can. But if there's any team that can do it, any player that can do it, I would bet on them. But as far as the schedule goes, it's all right. So here. This is totally random. I didn't even have this planned, but I was out to eat earlier, and we'll get into this when we end the show tonight. But they had the NFL Network up, and at the bottom was the ticker of all the games each week. Okay. Like that shows you how popular the NFL is. They're going week by week, every single game. Like you can't. I mean, it's too much information to even memorize.
Right. It does. You can't comprehend it right now.
No, and I think I saw week 8 or week 10, Minnesota at Tennessee. I think it was. And I just had this random thought pop in my head. I'm like, well, that looks like a crappy game. And then I immediately thought, I'm like, that could end up being the game of the year for all we know. So right. I'm just going to say that now. That might be the game of the year. So if it is, we can come back and say I was right. If not, we'll just forget this conversation even happened. It was just random. I was just sitting there thinking, I'm like, this is way too much to even, like I said, comprehend or keep track of. But just a random little thought there. And then, so some future bets. I don't know if you've looked at much. DraftKings has they've got more stuff than you can get on there for hours and look at stuff. If we're just talking MVP, which I like, I usually take out the favorites, and I always say pick whoever you think. Mahomes, Allen, it doesn't really matter. I do think Jordan Love at 12-1's got some value. He finished the second half of last season really well statistically. They're a really young team, so 12-1, I like that. Matt Stafford at 30-1 for MVP. I do think there is some value there. I just worry about if he has a really good season, if it'll be a little bit deflected toward Sean McVay getting more of the credit, because Matt Stafford's kind of in that borderline. People like him but don't love him. And then this guy, I don't necessarily like him really at all, but he's extremely talented. He's definitely a quarterback that could throw for over 3,000 yards and rush for over 1,000. That's Kyler Murray at 50-1. The problem is if you're going to win MVP as a quarterback, you got to at least win 10 games or more. So at 50-1, you might be throwing money down the drain. But he's not my favorite quarterback, but he's extremely talented, though. That's for sure.
Right.
And then if we look at Super Bowl odds, again, take the favorites out of it. The Packers at 19-1. You'll see a little theme here with the quarterbacks and the Super Bowl odds. I think 19 is a pretty good number there for the Packers. I don't know if they'll be as good as last year as how they ended, but 19-1 feels like a good number. The Rams at 35-1. I thought they were a couple plays away from beating Detroit. Now they did lose Aaron Donald. That's a big loss, but Sean McVay, Matthew Stafford, they had a really good draft last year. People think they had a good draft this year. That typically sets up well for success. And then I don't know if I like this one or not, but I couldn't find any other teams to pick. The Jaguars at 45-1. They started out the season pretty well last year.
Right.
Trevor Lawrence had some injuries, but that after the Jags at 45-1, I couldn't find a team I liked, to be honest. And I don't even really like the Jags at 45-1. I was just trying to figure out a long shot for the listeners out there.
Yeah, I think Trevor Lawrence he needs to prove that he can do it. There's got to be some questions down there in Jacksonville with him.
Yeah, the first year we kind of give him a pass because of the Urban Meyer stuff, which is rightfully so. Second year, good year. Last year was doing all right, and then had the injuries. So this year is a make or break year for him, no doubt about it. And the last little bets that I had written down, you can find a ton of these, but who plays in the Super Bowl? You don't have to predict the winner. You just have to predict the NFC team and the AFC team, which I like. I'm gonna place a few of these at least. And just to give the listeners some examples, Bills versus Lions, 50-1. Chiefs versus the Rams, 65-1. And Texans versus Packers, two young teams that people are really high on. That's 90 to 100-1 on some maps. So if you want to throw $5 on a couple of those, it makes for a season long kind of bet. Gives you something to pay attention to for little money. But there's a reason that there's 50, 80, 90 to 1. It's tough to get both right.
Oh, it'd be, and when you get close there, it's one of those you could maybe hedge out of that, especially if you have got 100 to 1 bet that, Packers and, and the Texans, like you said, if they're both in the NFC or in the championship games, you're hedging out of that a lot, I think, to at least guarantee yourself some money.
So yeah, at 100% right. So those I think are fun. $2, $3, $5, $10. Gives you something to kind of root for all season. Place 2, 3, 4 of them. I'll probably have 5 to 10 somewhere in there. Last year I had Chiefs versus the Lions in the Super Bowl, and that one almost came true. But that one still burns me to this day.
Yeah,
I'm not fully recovered on that one, but yeah, as far as that goes, I mean, you get on DraftKings or any of these sites. I mean, there's so many bets you can make. You can make the first pick of next year's draft, stat leaders, who leads the league in passing yards, just all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, I make my little bets or whatever, but I don't dive in deep like you do for all that stuff.
That's about as far as I go. I mean, I do some Super Bowl matchups, some MVP, but there's man, you can spend a lot of time on these apps betting weird stuff. Weird props, just all sorts of things. So,
yep. Just a couple other sports topics. I believe this happened today. All the charges are dropped against Scottie Scheffler from the PGA championship situation that he had. I think that was the only thing that could really happen. The conversation came out. The video came out. It didn't look like anything. Was that everything? The body cam didn't get activated or didn't work right. So they didn't have that. It was really the only outcome that I could see happening. They were not going to, arrest him and try to send him to jail for that, for whatever did actually happen.
Yeah, it was chaos. I mean, it's
Right.
dark, lights are flashing. They're all trying to get into this golf course. It's a crowded area to begin with. They talked about it was poorly set up to start, just in general, and then you have this tragic accident happen. From the video I saw, it looked like Scotty moved his vehicle forward pretty slowly, and the cop went and ran and banged his arm or a fist against the window or whatever,
Right.
a little aggressively, in my opinion, but I wasn't there. So I kind of figured the charges were going to get dropped. Scottie Scheffler is about the nicest guy as there is, it seems like to me. So this does feel like an incident where the cops maybe were a little out of line, I think is a safe way to put it. That's my read on it. I guess I don't know yours.
Yeah, it looked like they just overreacted. I mean, I
Yeah.
think everybody was a little heightened state. I think Scottie Scheffler was. I think the cop was. The situation was. It was dark. It was raining. A horrific accident had happened. Everybody was just in chaos mode and almost not knowing, and just the reactions of everybody wasn't correct. And this, unfortunately, is what happened.
Yeah, it just bad all around. Obviously, a guy lost his life, and then this happened after, of course. Big name in the spotlight. It does seem to me, like I said, like the cop got a little too aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he was stressed out. It's chaotic, like you said, dark, rainy, lights flashing. Nobody really knows what to do in those situations. It's easy to look back afterwards and judge. So I kind of figured the charges would get dropped, and you see all the T-shirts and everything going around the memes. This will live in golf history forever. But Scotty seems like one of the real good guys on tour, though, regardless.
Yeah, it just happened to be the one guy you didn't think that would happen to was him. There are other guys. Yeah, they lost their cool or lost their temp. Okay, I get it. And then, but he's the number one player in the world. Trying to do the Grand Slam. He won the Masters, played well first day. He was in contention. and just that situation, that it was just a horrible. And then speaking of, just golf in general, another horrific story there that this is just horrific is Grayson Murray with the suicide after his round last Friday. He has battled demons, and he was open with it. I think alcoholism and then mental health. And he withdrew after missing a short putt with 2 holes left, and he wasn't playing bad. I think he was under par and close to making the cut, or was under the cut line. So it wasn't like he was playing, wasn't going to shoot 80. But, and then, I don't know all the details. I don't want to know all the details, but it was horrific. And I just cannot imagine the 2 guys that he was playing with for Thursday and Friday, how they feel. Those are the 2 guys immediately that you feel for. I don't know how you come back from that, because you obviously knew he was battling something watching him do that. And you're some of the last people that had a conversation with him and you always wonder, what could I have done? And unfortunately, you have no idea. Maybe he'd already made up his mind. You just don't know. And I hope, his mom and dad released a great statement. I hope the PGA Tour did everything they could for him. I'm sure they helped him. Could they do more? Absolutely. Everybody could do more. We all could do more. And you look back and reflect, and hopefully the players, the tour, professional golf in general, just sports in general, will learn something from this and try to be better.
Tragic event for sure. I mentioned to you, John Middlecoff, I think, is a podcaster on YouTube. He does NFL every single day, just about, but he also does golf now about once a week. It's the Go Low podcast. I think you would enjoy it, actually. And he spoke about this event a day or 2 ago when he did it. I was listening to Today on a Walk, and he also mentioned that Grayson Murray and Scottie Scheffler had become friends recently, and Grayson Murray had stayed at Scottie Scheffler's house a few weeks ago, I think for the last major or one of the big tournaments, and they had dinner together and everything. So he just kind of talked about golf too is a little bit different. These guys all play together every single week. They're on the same driving range, putting green, chipping green, clubhouse after tournaments. Like, these guys know each other pretty well, whether they're great friends or not. But they, football's 53 players, 32 teams. It's a lot of, and you only see each other. Some teams only play once every 3 or 4 years.
Right.
So the golf community is kind of a tight community in a way. And it just, a tragic event. I mean, supposedly he'd quit alcohol from what I understand. And I saw the video of him walking off the green. Who knows what was going through his mind. I have no idea, obviously, but pretty tragic event, to say the least. I mean, for sure.
And then, unfortunately, not as a tragic situation, but no less diminished is the passing of Bill Walton at age 71. That a little bit, just to me, I thought he was older than that. But
I did too.
He's not that much older than my parents, which I understand that, and that's okay. But no, I mean, very few people knew he had cancer, that he just didn't let it on. He didn't let it bother him. But I guess it had been a while. I mean, this wasn't shocking per se to people that knew he had been battling this. And the only thing that could come to my mind on this is a little bit poetic and sad, and just the state of college sports in general. It's sad to me. Saturday night was the last Pac-12 event. The Conference of Champions, as he said it every time, 100 times a game that you watched him do. The end of the Conference of Champions, and then Bill Walton passes away a day and a half later. That got to me. I don't know Bill Walton. He was done playing before I remember. I mean, I don't really remember 1986. I was 6 years old. and he didn't play a lot during that season. I know him as a commentator. I really liked, you turned in to listen to his stories. You didn't listen for his take on basketball. You wanted that rant. I listened to Dan Patrick the other day, and he had just a great story about Bill Walton where he had him on every week or once a month, whatever it was. I think it was when he was back at ESPN on his show. And, they were talking a little before they went on, and he goes, Dan, you can go do whatever you want. This 11-minute segments, I'm just going to talk. And literally, Dan Patrick did not say a word during the 11 minutes. He asked him one question, and Bill went on the rant, and Dan didn't even have to be there. And who knows what it was about. And like Dan Patrick said, I don't remember and I don't care, but it was beautiful. And that's just, and for him to overcome his stuttering and to overcome and learn and appreciate John Wooden. John Wooden's just as a man is conservative and strict and everything. And Bill Walton's a free spirit and growing up in the 60s and just the time frame that it was compared to when, John Wooden was an All-American at Purdue in 1932 compared to 1968 when he's at UCLA. Just the times that it is so different and how those two coexisted and were so successful together. And he had the greatest game in a national championship game you'll ever see. He was like 21 of 22 and scored 45 points and 3-time player of the year, NBA, 2-time NBA champ, NBA MVP, Hall of Famer, and every
6th man of the year.
Yeah. I mean, just
for the Celtics.
I mean, we talk about this a lot, Trevor. We're getting a little bit older, and people that we grew up listening to and watching and doing it are passing away, and it hits home more, I guess.
Yeah, we're getting older. We got the gray hairs to prove it. We're not young pups anymore. I mean, I'm 35. I mean, I'm basically halfway to his age when he passed,
Right.
just about. So, the passing of John Madden, Bill Walton. I didn't know a lot about Bill Walton other than just what I heard him do on TV, right? That's all I knew. But I didn't realize most people consider him to be the first or second best college basketball player of all time, without question. I didn't know that because I'm not a basketball historian. And then in the NBA, from what it sounds like, he would have been like maybe the second or third best center of all time, but he had some injuries that just derailed his career. And I listened to Coward the other day, which I always do. He mentioned that, and maybe in a book or something, Bill Walton contemplated, now that we're talking about suicide because he had such bad back pain from the injuries and being tall. I mean, tall guys, everyone likes to glamorize being tall because, it's an advantage of, I mean, outside of playing sports, being tall would be pretty rough. Ducking through doorways and trying to go into restaurants, trying to find a vehicle that you can sit in comfortably, a bed, a hotel. Like, being tall is cool if you're a basketball player on the court. Outside of that, though, it's probably a struggle. And that's getting sidetracked. But Bill Walton, he was against wars. He was outspoken, kind of a hippie type guy. I mean, in a positive way. He was just, he's just a different guy. So I kind of wish I knew more about him until recently. Like, I knew of Bill Walton. I just thought he was a goofy character. I didn't realize all of his past successes, though. I wish I would have.
Yeah, there's some. I mean, I listened to Dan Patrick and others talk that true centers, the 3 best are Wilt, Kareem, and him. I mean, they don't even count Shaq in there, or he goes, those 3 were, basketball was different. He was at a time where dunking was outlawed. I mean, he couldn't. And the other thing is, he thought if you were 7 foot taller, you were kind of a freak. So he always listed himself at 6'11", but I guess he was about 7'2". That's how big he was.
There was something I listened to a month or two ago, and they were talking about big guys in the NBA, how a lot of the tall guys are quiet because growing up, they were kind of not outcasts or weird. But everyone looked at them because they're so tall. Like in junior high and high school, they felt weird because they're, twice the height of their classmates. So that kind of, that kind of registered when you said the 6'11" thing. Again, that goes back to like being tall is, it's cool on the basketball court. Outside of that, I don't know if there's much fun about it.
Well, they talked about that a little bit with Carmela Cordosa, was like 5'10" at 12 years old as a girl.
Mm-hmm.
And she was just kind of so outcast and just not normal. And that's not her fault.
Socially awkward. And
you're awkward at 12 no matter what, let alone being 5'10" girl. I mean, you're a foot and a half taller than some girls your same age, and then there are some guys that are 6'2", 6'3" at, 12, 13 years old. And, a lot of males do grow a little bit later in life. They'll be 6'3" and be good. Anthony Davis was this way. He was a 6'2", 6'3" guard. Then all of a sudden he grew 7 inches. And so that's why he has the skills as a 7-footer to do that. And that happens. But then others just, like, if you look at pictures of Shaq, he was always bigger than everybody else. It's just always was.
That'd be a different life growing up. I mean, you're an athlete, but outside of that, man, being tall and just that would be different. But yeah, Bill Walton, I mean, sounds like he was, I knew a little bit about him, but I'm learning more and more about him the past couple of days here. And just sounds like a great guy in general. Everybody that's come out and talked about him just said he was just, the best guy they ever met type deal.
Yeah, a really good article. Bryce Miller writes for the San Diego paper, and he had a great article, and he's battling cancer himself right now. And he was a writer here at the Des Moines Register before he went to San Diego, and he's good friends with Andy Fales and Keith Murphy. And he had a great article on Bill Walton. So look up, Keith Murphy's social media page. I think he did it. Or if you look at the San Diego, whatever big paper they are, Bryce Miller wrote a great article on Bill Walton. So if anybody would like to listen or read that article, it was a great in-depth article on Bill Walton and all he did for San Diego, which was his hometown.
I've heard lots of good articles, books, and as someone said it today or yesterday, the only good thing sometimes that come from someone passing is you get a good history lesson, stuff you didn't know. You look back and learn. So that's kind of what I've been doing the past couple of days. Not even intentionally, just hearing everybody, like you said, Dan Patrick, any of the big talking heads. There's lots of good information, and I didn't realize he was as good as he was as a basketball player, even.
All right,
I knew he was good. I just didn't know. I didn't know he was so dominant back then, I should say.
Yeah, he was. Injuries got to him, and that unfortunate for a lot of players. Anything else, Trev, tonight?
Oh yeah, I was going to ask you. I forget if we've talked about this before, but I text you. I got a pet peeve going on right now, and I've been talking to some people about it. And I feel like we've talked about this before, but we've done so many of these. Sometimes I can't tell if we've talked or not about certain things. So what I've noticed over probably the last year and a half, but especially lately, we talked about tipping a while back. You got to tip everywhere now or donate. And you tell me if you've noticed this. Anytime I go to sit down at a restaurant, besides like a fancy steakhouse type deal, I constantly have to ask for napkins and silverware. And it's a lot of chains, but I know the salt and the pepper and the ketchup have kind of been, the blue zone back in the day and that type of stuff. But now it's getting to a point where every time I sit down, even if I'm with a customer sitting down at the bar, the food comes and there's no napkins, there's no ketchup, there's no mustard, there's no silverware, and you have to repeatedly ask the server for it, and it just creates extra work for them. And I don't know if you've noticed that or not, but in my opinion, it's becoming a pandemic, and a pandemic out west at least.
I'm just trying to think. I went to a Mexican restaurant the other day. They had the stuff on the table, but it was on there before
and some do.
They had it on it. It wasn't.
That's the way to do it, I think.
It was already on the table when we sat down.
Yep. This is more like if you sit down at the bar top, I guess,
Right.
most of the time. But like I don't understand this aspect of giving people food and not giving them napkins or silverware. Like this is becoming a common thread out here.
Are
And
they
maybe I'm the only one. Maybe I just had bad luck, but I didn't know.
are they just trying to save a little bit? I mean, is it a conscious thing, or you think it's just an unconscious that they want you to ask, or what?
Maybe I look like a guy that doesn't need napkins or silverware. That's the only thing I come up with. And I still tip always. I try not to be mean about it, but I've just noticed like a lot of times when I sit down to even with customers, we'll sit down and order wings, burgers, chicken, whatever, and constantly we're asking, hey, can we get some napkins? Can we get silverware? Can we get ketchup, mustard, salt, pepper? So my biggest pet peeve is it creates extra work for the server. They have to go, they're running back and forth to get all the stuff. You mentioned like Mexican restaurants, most of the time out here, they already have it on the table, which I think is smart. But again, going back to the bar top type stuff, I don't know. It's just something I've noticed for a while. I was texting some of the guys and they've kind of noticed it too. So I didn't know if you'd experience that.
I haven't, but here's how this stuff works. I'll notice it now.
Oh yeah, you will. Yeah, sorry. Now you're gonna notice it, but yeah, what a tough life we live. We got a roof over our head,
Yeah.
Food, water, and here we are complaining about silly things. But it's one of those things I had to bring up.
No, I understand. No, good. Yep. I probably won't get silverware or napkins now everywhere I go. So.
Well, good. You can join my boat then. We'll
Yep.
suffer together. The terrible lives that we have.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Thanks, Trev. And we'll talk again next week.
All right. Sounds good.